I love the paradox in that one. As I said, it's always a standard question. Is he the only enlightened person or not? Right. We're going back a little bit to the wellspring of those, and the wellspring of one of the great kind of threads of freedom, Rousseau. Rousseau, and I'm going to do the first two books of the Social Contract for you. Now, this is one of those books. It actually has one of the opening bars I can guarantee all of you know. Very famous beginning, you'll know it when you hear it. But it's very symphonic. So it starts off with this really loud da-da-da-da, and then it kind of goes a bit boring and nobody remembers it. And then, right at the end of the second book, it has one of the darkest phrases ever made in philosophy, and one of the darkest statements I think ever made. Rousseau, you have to remember, just as I'm going to do, I'll let you pick up that statement, you'll work it out what it is at the end. But remember, Rousseau was the prime influence on Robespierre. So he kind of lives a revolution in the argument of the first book, the first two books of the Social Contract. He kind of gives you the hope, and it gradually turns darker and darker and darker, until you end up in the minor key with something so troubling. Rousseau was a famous dandy, by the way, and he writes Social Contracts to win a competition, which is how the beginning goes. First then, an explanation. Why am I writing this book? Well, it's not for money. You don't make any money out of books. Nor is it for power or influence, because I don't have any, and people in power won't read it if they can read. Nor is it because I think I'll win this competition, because competitions are judged by dunderheads. I won't win. No. I am writing this book toute pour la gloire de France. I am writing this book for the love of my nation. Let that be clear before we start. Now, where to begin? I find with writing, you need a phrase. It almost doesn't matter what. To set our animal natures afire. Now, let me think. Man is born in freedom, but everywhere is enslaved. How does this happen? It's good. Yeah. Very good. How does this happen? I haven't got a clue. But how can it be justified? I believe I have the answer. And that answer doesn't lie, Hobbes, in might. My right, or any judgment, any justice based on might would mean the right to rule would be the same as the right to resist. Arrant nonsense. But nor does it lie, I think, in the work of the ancients. Men who would have you believe that the authority of a ruler was like that of a father, and so ignore the fact that a father's authority endures only as long as there are children, while a ruler must rule for their lives and more. Or the same writers, and yet others, will try to persuade you that a ruler is the good shepherd of his people. And in this, you know, they reveal their true interest, for they are writing for the few, not the many, for the rulers, not the ruled. For what is a shepherd but the butcher of his flock? And what do we say about the people of such states? Poor slaves who cowardice, betrayed, and custom keeps down. This is no legitimacy. It is just slavery in another's name. And what do we say about our modern authors? You'll read in the eminent Hobbes, might is right. And yet that argument is clear piffle. Let me give you an example. Suppose tonight, you being foolish and thinking a philosopher had any money, you pinned me by my throat and tried to steal my wallet from me. You know, I would gladly give it to you. And I would be right to give it to you. Right, yes, for I saved my life. But not clear in my conscience. And it would not stop me, you know, tomorrow, riding out and hunting you down. This is no legitimacy then. Might legitimizes nothing, save robber barons and anarchy. All you'll read in the worthy Grotius, that a monarchy is a kind of contract whereby people trade their liberty for their security. But I say, what's the point of that? Is this not just the security of the prison yard? Nor do I think such a contract is binding. as it made as it is between such unequal partners, nor could it go down the generations. This could ground no state. So here, though, lies our problem. How is it that men ever sacrificed individual liberty to become part of a civilization? How indeed? But it clearly is not a problem we look for alone. For the first men must have suffered such a dilemma. How could they solve it? How would they solve it? Save for this, that somehow they realized, impelled by some act of nature, force, or who knows what, they realized that if they came together, they all surrendered their individual liberty. They all became part of a government. They all gained their say in a general will, collective consciousness, in which they all had their vote, by which they all became the government, through which they gained their liberty. But did they not gain so much more as well? For it gave them their hopes, their dreams, their beliefs, their languages, and their thought, so that through it, they and we become one people, indivisible, eternal under God. And yet do you not see, my friends of reason, as night follows day, what follows? That at times of dissension, great individuals and little will no doubt pit their individual wills up against the state. And how should we recourse at such times? Will you not agree with me that faced with such individuals, we must rise up and force such men to be free? As I said, I think that's probably the most threatening thing I've ever written.